Hey, everybody, what's up? Welcome into another edition of the Chop Shop. Trey Wingo here with my good friend Mark Schlereth. And this is a very special edition of the Chop Shop because it's all about Championship Sunday. Actually, that's not why it's special at all. It's Stinky's birthday. Happy day, big fella.
Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. This is I think it's the 23rd anniversary of Super Bowl 32, which I won on my 32nd birthday. Right.
So that means that you're 55. Your speed limit now.
I am double nickels and good to go, buddy. Good to go. So I appreciate that. And championship weekend was what a bunch of great games. That was awesome, man. Just awesome.
It was. And I'm still very angry that at 55 you have the hair of a teenager, but I'm moving past it because a La Jolla man clings to life right here is what I'm dealing with at this point. So there's a lot to digest with what we saw. And let's just do it chronologically with the NFC Championship game. Mark, we talk about this a lot, but sometimes there are decisions made in games and it just leaves you scratching your head. Look, I'll give you down by that point. Okay, maybe you want to kick the field goal. Fine, talk me into it. Here's my problem when they were down 31-23, down 8, needed a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to potentially tie the game. Have a plan, right? I didn't get the sense that they thought Aaron Rodgers thought, or Matt LaFleur didn't communicate it to Aaron Rodgers that, listen, we should have 2 plays here because we're going for it on 4th down because we need it. And Aaron sort of alluded to that in the press conference afterwards where he said, well, if I had known that, I might have called something different on 3rd down. And then I was looking and I saw 5 big guys running on to kick the field goal, and it wasn't my decision. So it didn't seem like, from what he was saying, there was a connected plan, head coach, play caller, quarterback, how they were going to manage that situation.
I think, interestingly enough, we're all, analysts when it comes to watching the games on our couch, right?
Yeah.
And I think, it's hindsight's always 20/20, but I think the rest of America was much like me. As soon as we got into the red zone, I turn over to my wife and I'm like, you got this 4-down territory. You gotta plan that way. And of course my wife was like, shut up. I'm trying to watch the game. Right. And I'm in analyst mode, but I couldn't believe it, frankly, because I sat there and thought, even on 3rd down, if you scramble, even if you're short, now it's 4th down and what? 2 from the 2-yard line, 4th and goal from the 2.
Mark, we both tweeted at the same time. I'm like, I see that play, and I'm like, run it. And but even
here's the deal. If your plan was you were going for it on 4th down, that's Aaron Rodgers. If you would have had that plan, that's him going, well, screw it. I'm going to take off here because I know we're going for it on 4th down. Like, it was unbelievable to me. And this is the problem with most young coaches and the guys who come over from the college game. And I've talked to multiple guys over the course of time. The decision-making process and understanding exactly what you want to do as a young coach and the game management when every game comes down to essentially a 1-score game, or the majority of all games in the NFL, it's not that way in college. And, I was talking to Matt Rule earlier in this year, I think week 17. He said, that's been the hardest thing for me, is to understand all these games are coming down to 1 score. So the situational football becomes so much more apparent. You should know as you're driving down, you should have that plan. It shouldn't be something that's willy-nilly thought about when it happens. It should have been happening during the course of that drive. So I'm with you, man. I was a head scratcher to me. I thought Aaron Rodgers is the MVP of the league. You got to let him try to pull it on 4th down.
Yeah, you're 100% right, because I get the feeling that if he thought they were going for it on 4th down, he would have taken off. And I'm not saying he would have scored, but to your point, it would have been a 4th and goal from the 3 at worst, instead of from the 8-yard line, which makes it much more manageable. All that being said, and look, I want to be clear about one thing. Matt LaFleur, in his first 2 seasons as a head coach of the Packers, has led them to back-to-back NFC title games. There's no question about he's doing a great job. Although situationally, we both agree that was not his best moment on that last drive. But let's be honest, that's not why the Packers lost. The Packers lost because of something really, the last play of the first half and the first series of the second half destroyed the team as far as I'm concerned. Let's go back to the decision at the end of the half. it was like Greg Williams had suddenly become the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. They have no timeouts. It's 4th and 3. And somehow that defense alignment left Kevin King alone on Scotty Miller. And look, I get it. Maybe Kevin King should have played it better. You should be doubling everybody and have 6 guys at the goal line, right? That was the problem I had with that situation. They had no timeouts. Anything caught in the field of play, tackle them, the half is over. It was an egregious error and an egregious decision.
I think there's 2 things that you have to understand in that situation. One is Kevin King is the deep third defender, and that's fine. If you want to be the deep third defender, if that's what you want to call, that's great. Make sure you stay in the deep third, that you don't get beat over the top. To me, the biggest issue there, again, comes down to situational football. I understand that what he's guarding for, and he's trying to be a hero, and this is my thought process when I was watching it just kind of come to fruition, is you're sitting there saying, hey, man, they're going to try to run a quick out, something to the sideline, get themselves 5 or 6 yards, get out of bounds so they can kick a field goal. So first and foremost, if I'm going to play the deep third, I want to be normally in the deep third, you're playing inside leverage a lot of times, or I want to play outside leverage, right? And I want to force him to my help, or I want to play tight inside leverage and force him out of bounds. But the bottom line is, I can't play that sideline route. I got to let him catch that and see if they can kick a field goal. I cannot give up the play down the football field. So I think that was the most egregious part of it to me is, are you playing hero ball? Are you going to try to jump an out route and take it to the house and be the hero of the game as opposed to playing the defense the way it's called? Like that again was a situational mistake on the Green Bay Packers. And those are the things that cost you football games.
Yeah, look, it was an amazing. I couldn't believe it when I saw what had happened, and then the Packers get the ball back to start the second half, and it ends in a turnover that leads to a chippy touchdown, a shorty. And at that point, barring some sort of miraculous comeback, they were down 18 points. The game, for all better terms, was over until Tom Brady became terrible. Right? He was really good in the first half. He was not really good in the second half. I think he threw for barely 80 yards in the second half. He had 3 turnovers. I mean, 3 turnovers. He had 3 interceptions. And this is another place where I think the Packers lost the game, because I believe most games are lost in one. The decision and the defensive call and the way King played it were horrible decisions at the end of the half. They got 6 points off 3 straight interceptions from Tom Brady. If he's giving you 3 of those, you have to convert those into points.
Yeah, I so many Packer fans, and if you're a Packer fan, plug your ears right now. So many of you bitching about like how aggressively the DBs of Tampa played, and and the bumping and the grinding and changing the routes and all that, the clutching and the grabbing and all that stuff. Like I don't want to hear about it. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback. You have the MVP of the league. You turned Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over 3 times, and you came away with 6 points.
Yep.
I mean, inexcusable. That's where the games are lost. Like I was always taught as a football player, we're never going to let it come down to the officials. We're never going to let it come down to one play. We're going to handle our business, make sure that we do the things that we need to do to win a football game. And there are no excuses. So, hey, listen, did they let them play aggressively? Yeah. I personally like it. I think it should be that way. So I'm not going to sit there and whine and cry about, hey, this was pass interference. This wasn't. This was holding. This wasn't. There were plenty of calls both ways that both teams benefited from. I'm just not going to really worry about it.
Right, but then what Packer fans are going to say. Well, then wait a minute. Why on that last play, when a stop gives the Packers one more chance, do they call that on Kevin King? By the way, King has had better days because it was so blatant. You could see the jersey pull from the back judge, and that's his responsibility. It would be egregious if he didn't make that call at that moment. I know people hate it. It was the right call. You can argue they weren't calling it all game, but that one was so blatant. There's no way you can't call it.
There's a difference between clutching and grabbing on the hip or on the shoulder where the jersey doesn't actually stretch because it's harder to see. Here's the thing that's interesting. Like there is holding right? Which happens on every play. And there's the holding that gets called. And let me just tell you how it works in an NFL locker room. We coach on what gets called. So we're like, hey, listen, even though I don't think this is holding, if you find yourself in this position, you're going to get called. So don't get in that position. This will never get called. Hold all you want, undress the guy. But like that's how we're coached in the NFL. So you're looking at it like, hey, if they're not going to coach it, it's kind of like the baseball pitcher, like the Greg Maddoxes of the world. They'll say, okay, let me throw one on the black. All right, now let me throw one a ball outside the black. Oh, that's still getting called a strike. Let me throw one 2 balls outside the strike zone. Oh, that's still getting called a strike. You would be stupid. I mean, stupid if the umpire is giving you 2 balls outside the black on the outside corners, and you'd be like, oh, wait a minute, they're giving me that pitch, but I don't want to take it because that's not fair. Let me put one down the middle of the plate. No, if they're going to give you 2 balls outside the black and they're going to call it a strike, you know what you do as a player? You take 2 balls outside the black because you even if you get wood on it, you're not going to do anything but foul it down the first base line. So like
Right.
it's stupid for me to think, well, you know what, that should be called. Or if you're going to get away with it, guess what? You're going to get away with it as a player. If they're going to let you do it, you'd be stupid not to do it. So I don't have a problem with it.
And the hardest thing for Packers fans right now is they had the better quarterback in this game. Aaron Rodgers played phenomenal football, 346 yards, 3 touchdown passes. And I think that's the thing that is going to gnaw at Packer fans all this offseason. You finally had a home conference championship game, the first one in Aaron Rodgers' career. He was by far the better quarterback on the field, especially in the second half. 346 yards, 3 touchdowns, and you still couldn't find a way to get it done. And that leads us to a bunch of stuff that may or may not happen this offseason. Look, you and other people have always said never really listen to what someone says when the season's immediately over because you're just drained, you're tired, you're spent, you're very emotional. But Aaron has said his future many times is kind of a mystery, and he certainly did not back away from that at all after that game was over.
Yeah, he didn't. I mean, I can't imagine as good a season as he had, as good as offense as they have, and they're outstanding. I can't imagine him not being back with the Packers. I mean, I truly believe he will be. I'm with you though. I mean, you get emotional. You see the mistakes that were made, the disappointment of what you did all season long to get to the conference championship game, to be 1 game away from the Super Bowl and to not to be able to get there. It's devastating. And I understand the emotions of it. And also, that you went out and got yourself a quarterback in the first round last year in Love, but
traded back into the first round to get him, by the way. Well, he wasn't just sitting there. They aggressively got him.
Yeah. And so all those things, all those hurt feelings kind of bring themselves back into the forefront of your mind. But, I think cooler heads will prevail. You'll look back at the season, the incredible stuff you did, how good your team is. You just have a great chance to go back from that position. So I just have to imagine he's going to be back in Green Bay next year.
And then that leads us to this. Tom Brady is going to his 10th Super Bowl. Now, first of all, that in and of itself is an insane thing, right? It's an insane thing to say, unless you're an assistant coach that's been on 4 different teams. Yeah, I'm going to be in my 10th Super Bowl. So let's take it one step further. He really didn't play except 1 game his rookie year. And then in 2008, when he tore his ACL, he played the first half of the first game, and that was it. So really, he's had 19 full seasons as a starting quarterback. Better than half the time that he's been a starting quarterback, he's ended up in the Super Bowl. I don't know that if there's anything in the history of the sport that is more incredibly off the charts beyond what anything is even possible than that.
It's amazing. And I've said this a million times. I'll say it again. What he's done from a physical standpoint, remarkable. At 43 years old, everybody and their brother's uncle trying to write his obituary, and he just keeps showing up and playing great football. That part's incredible. The most important or the most incredible part to me, Trey, is that you can play at that level for that length of time and have all the success that you've had, and you're not sated by that success. Because human nature would say, hey, man, once I've arrived, let me put it in cruise control. Let me relax a little bit. This guy grinds like nobody's business. And the fact that, one, he's a superstar that allows himself to be coached, right? He wants hard coaching. He wants the coaches to grind on him. And there's nobody that's going to grind more than he is. And he'll grind on the other players, but he holds himself accountable. That's where the leadership part comes in for Tom Brady, is that he is constantly holding himself accountable. And half the time, when people say, I don't like the way he cusses people out on the sideline, half the time he's dog cussing himself for a stupid decision. So the guy is absolutely remarkable. The fact that he is not sated by success, that he continues to go out and grind like nobody's business, it's one of the most remarkable things I've ever watched.
It really is. And, this team is sort of peaking at the right time. There's no question about it. Now they have the chance to do what no team has ever done. There'll be a home game for the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, it's not a home crowd. We all know that. The NFL makes sure that that's never the case because of the way the tickets are distributed. But they're going to play in their home stadium. And the team that they're playing is a team that went down there week 12 and beat them by 3 points, 27-24, the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So Mahomes is one game away from what you did in Super Bowls 32 and 33, and what Teddy Bruschi and the Patriots did in Super Bowls 38 and 39. Mark, was there ever a point in the AFC Championship game, even when the Bills went up 9-0, that you really thought they were going to win?
No, there was never. For me, I just looked at the history of last year. I mean, double-digit deficits in every game they played. And I was like, okay, when do you want to turn it on? And, the amazing thing with the Kansas City Chiefs is their ability to create through formations, through motions, through runs, through throws, their ability to create explosive plays, which we define in the running game as 12-plus yard carries, in the passing game, 20-plus yard plays in the passing game. So talking to Robert Saleh a year ago about what explosive plays mean to you as a football team. Each explosive is worth about 2.6 points per explosive. Like the
Look
Kansas
at you
City Chiefs,
being all mathy and stuff.
right? But here's the thing: the Kansas City Chiefs are going to get 12 to 15 explosives every single game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to hang 30 on you regardless, because that's what they do. I think one of the things that's interesting to me too is they are so explosive on the offensive side of the ball that we tend to forget how good they are defensively. And I know they were the middle of the pack defense, but they have big time playmakers, guys that can make explosive kind of game changing plays up front with Frank Clark, up front with Chris Jones, in the back end with Rashad Breeland and Matthew. They just have really good players, and they're just so overshadowed by the offense that we tend to forget that they're going to make 3 or 4 big plays defensively in any given game, which will give their offense one more possession. And this offense, when they have one possession, it turns into 7 points. It's just the way they are.
Yeah, look, the kid L'Jarius Sneed has been phenomenal in the 2 playoff games against Cleveland and also in the AFC title game last night. But one thing that I thought was that just, look, again, I never thought the Bills actually had a chance to win the game from the moment they kicked off. But, the Kansas City defense, red zone defense, dead last in the regular season. They came up with 2 stops, forcing them for field goals. If you do that against that Kansas City offense, you really have no chance to win. I mean, the only reason it was even remotely a game was because they messed around at the front, right? They had an egregious unnecessary roughness penalty. Tyreek Hill on the first drive dropped a perfect pass that would have been about a 30-yard play, and that's why they had to punt on that one. And then Mecole Hardman messes up and drops the punt, gives the Bills an easy touchdown there. And it was like, all right, we're not worried at all, because that's how supremely confident they're in. And I don't think people truly understand how off the charts what Patrick Mahomes is doing. Here are his first 3 years as a starter in the NFL. 2018, one of 3 quarterbacks in NFL history to throw for 50 touchdown passes in a season. The other 2, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. And oh, by the way, he's the MVP. 2019, he gets his team to the Super Bowl, comes back from double digits, 3 straight games in the postseason, wins the Super Bowl MVP. 2020 leads them to a 14-1 record as the starting quarterback, didn't play in the last game of the regular season against the Chargers, and now has them poised to do what no team has done since the Patriots did it 16 years ago, repeat as Super Bowl champions. This is the kind of stuff that no one does in their first 3 years as a starter in the league. I get it. He was drafted in 2017. He played one game, essentially, the Week 17 game against the Broncos in Denver. People need to realize you're looking at the next thing, and he's 25 years old, Mark, and he's already done all of this.
It's amazing because I always say I have this kind of 70-30 rule that I adhere to as an offensive football player. 70% of the time you're on schedule, meaning, you hand the ball off, you throw a screen, a bubble screen, you throw a slant drag, flat combination, you have the you have the stuff that you normally do, right? And you stay on schedule, and it's 3rd down and 2, and we convert and we move on, and 1st down we do. And then 30% of the time you're off schedule. How good is your quarterback off schedule? Like, I mean, one, he's exceptional on schedule, right? He's a freak show. 2, he's even better off schedule. Yeah. So it's one of those, like, pick your poison. Do you want, death by 1,000 paper cuts, or do you want to blitz him and let him escape and then throw some ridiculous throw 40 yards downfield across his body with somebody draped over his legs, and he just throws an absolute dime piece? And here's the most remarkable thing. I was talking to Matt Nagy, who was the offensive coordinator before he went to Chicago, about Patrick Mahomes' rookie year. And he said they would be in training camp, and he'd be, operating the 3rd team offense. And he would just eviscerate. Because normally when you're doing the 3rd, you're playing against the 1st and the 2nd team defense. He would eviscerate the 1st team defense. And they said we would like, as soon as practice was over, we're like all these fat coaches, running to go watch the film because they were so excited about what he was able to accomplish. And from day one, he understood the game from the neck up. And here's one of the things for all these teams, and I just don't understand teams. I mean, I live here in Denver watching a bunch of rookies, basically, the blind leading the blind. These teams that don't hire veteran quarterbacks to help mentor their young quarterbacks is beyond me. But I'm saying that because Alex Smith he's a really good quarterback, as you know, before the leg injury, and what he did this year was incredible. But talking to Matt Nagy about Alex Smith and just the development that Mahomes Mahomes was a sponge, and Alex knew that eventually he was going to take over his job the next year. And he poured everything he could pour into the kid to say, I know you're going to be special. I know you're going to take over, and let me help you, because Alex is like a perfect scorer on the Wonder League. Alex is a genius. Yep. And I tell you what, like, the neck up stuff is so important. And this kid not only has it athletically and his ability to make plays off schedule, but he understands the game. It's hard. Like, as a Bronco, I want to hate his guts, and I love the kid. And that's kind of like eating a turd sandwich, Trey. I mean, it's not a great thing as a Bronco. I mean, for the next 15 years, he's just going to absolutely handle us. I just know it, and it makes me sick.
You mentioned the 70-30 thing. That'll get into when we do the Super Bowl prediction show. I mean, I think that's going to be a big part of it, because, like, when Brady was off schedule in that Packers game, it was not pretty.
Yes.
Like, there were a couple of blitzes in that game that they did find. Remember, when they played in the regular season, Buffalo and Kansas City, Buffalo didn't blitz him one time. That was the first time in a regular season game since 2016 there wasn't a single blitz, and he just worked him methodically down the field. And they blitzed him a couple of times, and these linebackers came in hot, and he was like, please, and was able to drop these throws. And, of course, the worst part about this for Buffalo is that they were the team that traded up or traded back so Kansas City could take Mahomes at 10, and they traded back to 27. And, of course, they were trying to end a 27-year drought of going to the Super Bowl, and that pick essentially allowed it to happen. Now, look, I think Buffalo's very happy with what they got in that trade, because they ended up getting Tre'Davious White, who, by the way, is great. But my God, did Tyreek Hill just say, I'm faster than you on that one play and turn him out and go. They also got Tremaine Edmonds, Deion Dawkins, and, of course, that enabled them to draft Josh Allen. So they're very happy with it. I think the future is really bright in Buffalo. But here's the problem for anybody I see in the AFC. And I like Justin Herbert. I think it's the Chargers are on the upswing. They've got their quarterback. Find me the guy and the team right now in the AFC that you think, with the way their team is constructed and their quarterback, they're going to be consistently better than Kansas City with what they've got and their quarterback. Right now, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And, that's for me here, in an AFC West town. I mean, people keep saying, well, this had this, that, and the other. Like, listen, you've got Mahomes, and then regardless whether you want to, say, hey, it's Derek Carr, it's Herbert, it's whoever. Like, you're always the best you're gonna have is the second best quarterback in your division. And tell me how many times the second best quarterback in your division, makes a deep playoff run. It just doesn't happen. Every now and again there's the outlier, right? But for the most part,
Denver 2015, when Peyton went 9 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, right? That's the outlier.
Yeah, but you have to have one of the world's best defenses in the history of the game, to get that done. Very much like the Baltimore Ravens in 2000. No offense to our guy Trent Dilfer, we love you, Trent, but that defense was ridiculous. So like those things, I mean, yeah, he's a dominant player. There's no question. And boy, I tell you what, for the rest of the AFC, you're going to have to build a great football team. You're just going to have to hope that you have one of those remarkable games from everybody else.
Like, look, the Bills, I think, are as good a team top to bottom that I can think of. Look, the running game isn't great, but it's good enough. I think the one thing they're missing is what you said, the war daddy. They don't have a guy on defense, and they thought Jerry Hughes could be that guy, but he wasn't. They need that dominant guy. And Ed Oliver's good on the inside, but they need a guy that can wreck a game plan. Much in the same way Mahomes on the offensive side can wreck a game plan, they need to find a defensive game plan wrecker. I think that's the one thing that's missing from that team construct in Buffalo right now.
Let me tell you what that does for you too. Obviously, every time you break the huddle, you have to find that guy and say, how are we going to contend with that guy?
Right.
But what it really does for you as a defense is you start to understand they're going to have to keep multiple guys in there to block the war daddy guy. So we can essentially understand where your protections are set, how you're going to go about that, and where the rest of our one-on-ones are. And that to me is the big key. You start attacking protection. You start attacking weak links into protection, and it gives you an advantage, where you don't have to bring pressure necessarily, but you can attack. And that's one of the things that's been great about Kansas City. And it'll be interesting to see exactly how they deal, with Fisher and that injury at the left tackle position. Because one of the things about Kansas City that I always tell people, we talk about all that speed and getting 5 guys out and all that stuff. To get 5 guys out in the pattern, you have to have 5 guys that can protect. And they have done it as well as anybody. And when they do break down, Patrick Mahomes makes people miss, throws these dime pieces down the field. There's nothing you can do about it type of thing. But that's going to be an interesting matchup, especially with Shaq Barrett on an edge and JPP on one edge. And if they allow those DBs to be as grabby and handsy as they were in the NFC Championship, and I hope they do, that's tying that back end together with the front end. Boy, I tell you what, that will make it a little bit more of an even matchup when it comes to Mahomes and that Tampa Bay defense.
We'll do the full breakdown of the Super Bowl a week from this coming Friday, right before the game, so I don't want to get too much into that. But what we've learned over this weekend, Championship Sunday, what happened in the regular season matters, right? Like we saw Tampa Bay manhandle Green Bay when they went down there to Tampa. And, Green Bay had the early lead, but, Tampa wore them down offensive line, defensive line. Changed a little bit with the 3 turnovers in the second half, giving the Packers all the credit in the world, but the song remained the same. Same thing we saw in the AFC Championship game. Buffalo, they went up there, Buffalo week 6, I think it was, and ran them out of their own building. And this time they tried to blitz them and they paid for them. So those things that happened in the regular season, they mattered when it came down to it. And look, there wasn't a bad matchup for the NFL here. It was either going to be Rodgers trying to get number 2 against Mahomes, trying to get his second in 2 straight years, or the Bills back in 27 years, or Brady against the Bills, as an old AFC East thing in the Super Bowl. There's a part of me that knows the NFL thinks they got the best possible draw here, right? Tom Brady trying to win it for a second team against the unstoppable force that has been Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Like we all do this in the media, right? We all, when the playoffs go on, what's the best possible scenario? This really is the best possible scenario, right? This is the storyline Super Bowl that if you said, well, if I'm being honest about it, all things being considered, this would probably draw the most attention.
I think not only that, because if, like you mentioned, I mean, you got the old GOAT in Tom Brady versus the young GOAT in Patrick Mahomes. So you've got the two quarterbacks that I think probably move the needle better than anybody else. But honestly, when you want to talk about strength on strength matchups, you've got the best, most dynamic offense in all of football in Kansas City. And to me, and I think I called 3 Tampa games this year. I think it's the most dynamic defensive football team that I've watched. All 3
I agree.
levels to me have superstars with speed. Now, just because a lot of people don't know about the secondary because they're young, Murphy Bunting is great, Dean is great, Carlton Davis is great, and Antoine
Right.
Winfield Jr., who missed. That dude, all 3 levels, is a superstar. Could be the rookie of the year defensively. So, rookie player or the defensive player of the year. So, I tell you what, it's a great strength on strength matchup between Tampa's defense and Kansas City's offense.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Winfield and Antonio Brown are able to come back for Tampa on Super Bowl 55, and of course, we'll see what happens with Fisher and that offensive line for Kansas City because they've been beat up already. Mitchell Schwartz hasn't played essentially
Yeah.
all season, so we'll get into much more of that when we break down the Super Bowl a week from this coming Friday. But that'll put a wrap on this edition of What We Saw on Championship Weekend. Hey, you have a hell of a birthday.
You look at, man, this is what my wife got me for my birthday.
What you got?
Red vines.
Oh, red vines.
You know,
nice.
when you're 50, when you're 55, this is like a great birthday, Brett. I'm just gonna sit here and get fat.
Well, listen, you're being warned. Your kids love you so much. They sent me some great photos of you when you were younger and maybe slightly fatter. I'm going to use one of those when the episode pops up a little bit later. You've been warned. Okay.
Yes. All right. Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. On behalf of
Thank you very much.
welcome.
All right, man. We'll see you. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.